Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. I am your host, Viz, and today we have a very, very special guest, the Predator himself from Prey, Dane DiLiegro. Dane, thank you so much for being our guest today. How are you doing?
Good. DiLiegro, Dane DiLiegro.
DiLiegro, sorry, my
Yeah, it's
apologies.
okay. It's okay.
My
No, I'm great.
apologies.
I'm happy to be here. I'm super excited about this.
And we're excited to talk to you. You know, we got the Predator in house. Now, I got to ask you, Dane, now that the Prey, for everybody that doesn't know, is streaming exclusively on Hulu. It premiered July 21st. So go out if you are one of the few people who have not watched it yet. I highly encourage you to go out and watch it. And my first question to you, Dane, now that we're more than a month in, are you surprised on the popularity of this film and how it just has skyrocketed?
Um, I'm not surprised, but I'm shocked if that makes sense. So that is to say, like, I knew it was going to be an interesting and well done film, but I'm shocked because I never thought in a million years that it would go the way it went in terms of the Rotten Tomatoes and the reception. Um, it's just it's I
It,
think it's exceeded a lot of our expectations
I, I,
beyond anything we could have thought of.
when you get into a franchise like the Predator, Aliens, and so on, the two have intermixed and matched. This is like what, like the fourth, fifth, sixth movie in the franchise. I've lost count. And then to come out with this movie, this hit, this great piece of work is very, very rare. So tell us, what kind of auditioning process did the studio put you through? What were they looking for the person that was going to play the Predator?
When I got the phone call, I was essentially brought in at first to be the reference guy for the design pitch of this character.
Okay.
And um, it was essentially the creature shop showing their design for this predator to Dan, the director, and the director of photography, Jeff Cutter, and the producer, Marty Ewing. And I was told to bring a balletic svelteness to this character, which what the hell is a balletic svelteness? Oh,
Exactly.
interesting. So I was thinking more animalistic, more feline, kind of like a panther, kind of the smooth moving, very instinctual, very well balanced animal um, that knew where he was going. So it was an interesting process, and obviously the suit to wear the suit was uh, you know difficult at times, and it just kind of worked out that I was one of the only guys really capable of um, pulling off wearing that heavy head and the suit and all of that.
That's awesome. And before we go on, I gotta say I love the props in your background. You have the
Oh
actual Predator shield. You have
yeah,
the skull back there as well.
yeah. There's a
They
combi stick right there
and
as
the
well.
combi stick. They let you keep that from the set.
Kind of, sort of. That's also the wolf skull that I wore on um, my sarong
Yeah.
throughout the movie. That's the one that Tabe stabbed me with in the leg. That's the actual one. These
Wow.
ones, these ones are exact replicas that were made after we finished.
Wow, that is so amazing that you got to keep that and you have it in your possession. Now, would you describe your predator as a young predator sent to Earth as this being his final test to join the warrior class?
No, I would not. That was not part of the storyline. It was kind of kept ambiguous with this character in terms of what his backstory was. I created my own backstory for this character, which drove and motivated how I wanted to move. Um, Definitely a younger, more unrefined predator um, that had some hubris in there,
Hmm.
and he's not fully tested. Um, but I wouldn't say this was the final test before becoming a blooded predator or whatever.
To join the
Um,
rest of the predator.
yeah, no, in terms I have to be careful with what I say because I don't want to create canon. But there's it's just this younger predator's first time exploring Earth,
Yeah,
not knowing where he is in his way of working up through the food chain, through the hierarchy of, you have the ant, then the rat,
yeah.
then the snake, and then the wolf, and then the bear, and then you're going through the trappers. So the way he processes that, the way a predator would do so.
Now tell us a little bit more about that backstory. How did you get into character for the way you wanted your predator to come across on the screen?
I Dan granted me a lot of creative freedom because for the first time ever, it was a situation where we didn't really want to recreate exactly or replicate what Kevin Peter Hall did for this character. He
Mm-hmm.
wanted a bit of a departure, so more animalistic, more feral, more primal. He gave us a few keywords, um, of how he wanted this predator to move. He set some parameters for us, and then from there, I could kind of put my own creative spin on it, the way how I thought this character would move, essentially.
Now, the thing that's very obvious for anybody who's seen any of the prior Predator movies is the masks that the Predator wears. It's completely different from the other films. Is that because this is several hundred years before the original Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then in the 90s with Danny Glover, and moving on into the future? Because it is several hundred years before that, it is also just showing us the progression of the Predators as a species and the different design costumes they've gone through. They're war suits, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they wanted to de-evolutionize the weaponry of this character going into this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like to say if the other predators in the other films are living in condominiums in New York City, this guy lives in the outback of Australia. So, maybe from a different hemisphere, a different tribe on whatever planet they come from. Um, but I just know the main basis of this film was to kind of do a little bit of a departure from traditionally what you would see on screen in terms of the Predator lore or
Yeah,
canon.
and it played very, very well. You and Amber Midthunder, who plays Naru, have some intense scenes together, battles, hand to hand combat. How much, rehearsal went into those choreographed scenes that was just you and Amber?
Quite a bit. I mean, especially for me, since I couldn't really see much when I was the Predator. I just had to be sure that I wasn't going to hit her for our fight scenes. Um, I mean, for me, a lot of rehearsal. Amber was did most of her stunts. She did as much that production would allow her.
Mm-hmm.
So she kind of had the luxury of she could show up and kind of do things with less rehearsal than me, just based off of her skill and the
She
fact that
kicked
she could
ass.
see. Yeah, she did kick ass. But we obviously worked very closely together for a long time to make sure everything um, came out the way it did, and it shows on screen.
I loved how they made it a point to show that the predator is not this perfect hunting species. It makes mistakes.
Yeah.
Now, was that from the onset in the script? Was that part of the latitude collaboration that you and Dan had into portraying this predator to sort of finding his way, making some mistakes along the way, and so on?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, there are definitely elements to that where, obviously this predator is a little unrefined. He is imperfect. Um, and we did want to show that. But essentially with this movie, we didn't want to get too deep into predator lore. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's more of an adventure story about Naru and her journey,
Yeah.
where there just happens to be a predator in this movie. So, and I think that's a fresh take on an existing franchise that obviously it worked very well. But I think the idea here was not to explore too deeply into predator lore because it would distract from Naru's journey of
Journey.
what he was trying to accomplish.
While being on set, were you impressed with the amount of detail and research that went into the Comanche tribe in the Midwestern plains back in the early 1700s?
Yeah, I mean, our producer Jane Myers, she is Comanche and did a tremendous job ensuring that everything on set, everything you see on screen, is authentic and is real. Um, she was there every day and had full creative control with how she wanted the Comanche tribe to be portrayed, and she did a fantastic job. With the end result.
I completely agree. Now, when we see the predator non-camouflaged, was that all you in costume and makeup, or there some motion capture scenes where they sort of dotted you with all the motion capture equipment, and then they CGI'd the predator over that?
This film was mostly shot completely practical. I was
Nice.
in the suit. There was no makeup. It was just kind of strapped onto me. And Dan wanted that realism of the predator to get reactions out of Naru and Tabe and everyone else. So as real as possible for as long as possible was kind of the goal here. Um, there were some things that I did in terms of motion capture. All the motions you see of when he's jumping through the trees
Mm-hmm.
or when he's doing something that a human just flat out can't do.
Yeah.
For motion capture, they captured my actual movements and applied them to a CG avatar of this character. So it still is me moving. But the VFX team did a tremendous job of kind of sewing the gap between what was computer generated and what was practical.
They did, and you got to give credit to the VFX people. They did like you said, an incredible job on this film. The infamous scene, the fight, the battle between the bear and the predator. Okay, now a lot of that we know the bear was CGI'd in. It was such an intense scene, and people loved that scene. Were you any part of that scene? Because a lot of that battle, the predator is camouflaged, and we just mainly see the bear, and the bear being in the fight and being tormented by the predator. What part, if any, did you have in that scene? With that in that bear fight scene?
No, that was me. I
Oh,
that was one of the days we shot at the Free Running Academy, and they had me doing things like I had to lift up a big giant heavy pad over my head and make it look like it was really heavy, and then I'd slam it down. And I think I did, some of the movements of punching the bear and kind of tussling with the bear, and they had me holding onto a pad that someone else was with, and then throwing the pad down. So those were my movements. Was I there in the water for that? No. But we did shoot some stuff on a sound stage of
mm-hmm.
me with a reference bear. You might have seen some photos on the internet of that.
Yeah.
Um, and to take that even further, I wasn't used in that scene, but they actually did shoot that beaver dam scene in the woods in a creek in the middle of a national park, and that was when Amber went under. That was real. I mean, she was
Wow.
really there in that river with the real
Damn.
current and everything.
Wow. Now, playing a part of a creature, which you have, that's the majority of your roles. You play creatures and aliens and whatnot. And everything has to be conveyed through body movement, body language, and so on. Every actor who does these kind of roles, it's such an art form. What is your approach when it comes to body language? Where there is no dialogue, to sort of giving your character, in this instance the predator, a voice when he doesn't have a voice that we can understand.
Yeah, I mean, I attended mime school, so I learned how to tell a story through nonverbal communication, and I had to apply that to this character. Obviously, this predator cannot speak, so it's up to me to tell this predator's story through my posture, through my movements, through the way my head moves or whatever, while still acting and also portraying this character in a
Mm-hmm.
specific sense. So yeah, that definitely comes into play. And I don't have the luxury of words, which is a challenge. But for me, I think it's fun, and I enjoy doing that.
Now you're an athlete. You have a sports background. Does that come in handy for a role like this, being athletic and being able to do a lot of the moves that require athleticism?
Oh, absolutely. This is a big, heavy suit, and it's hot inside, and it can be cumbersome at times. I, you know, I'm no longer a pro athlete anymore, but I still train like one every day. So all of my functional training and my strength and conditioning that I do is geared towards if I have a role coming up that requires me to be more physical than your, standard
Yeah.
standard actor, who doesn't have to wear a 70-pound suit and a 15-pound head.
It sounds like this role as of the Predator, as opposed to some of your other roles, was a little bit more physically demanding. Is that an accurate statement?
I would say so. Yes, it's very physically demanding.
So you would go in the morning. How long did it take in that makeup chair to do like the? I'm sure they did a cast of your face and all the other stuff. I mean, how long did you have to sit in the makeup chair each day to transform into the Predator?
11 minutes. Yeah,
How did that
crazy.
work?
There actually is no makeup. There was nothing glued to my face. I would slide into this suit, and they would zip it up, and then they would put the gloves on, and then they'd put the hands on, and then I was ready to walk to set and go to set, and then to put this head on took about 2.5 or 3 minutes. So there was
Holy.
nothing glued to me. There was no makeup. Um, they did take a cast of my face and my head, but that was
In
in
the beginning.
pre-production months before. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay. It looks like they've definitely streamlined that process over the years.
Hmm.
You mentioned Dan Trachtenberg, who's the director of this film. What was it like working with Dan? You mentioned he did give you a lot of creative latitude when it came to The Predator. Overall, what was your experience with Dan as a director of Prey?
Oh, Dan was awesome. He's a movie nerd. He's a cinephile just like me, um, and he was truly passionate about this project. So we would shoot things, and we wouldn't move on until it was just right. And Dan has the ability to see things before I think anyone else sees them,
Mm-hmm.
and um, you know obviously the end result shows that with the way things turned out. But no, he was great, and a lot of directors don't really understand that you're in a big giant heavy suit and it can be cumbersome and hot. And Dan had a great appreciation for that and understood how things worked.
Yeah.
So
Now, were you a fan of this franchise before you got this role, or did you have to acquaint yourself after you got the role?
oh no, I was very aware of Predator before. I've seen all the movies. I mean, ever since the early '90s when I was a kid, I've seen Predator movies. So um,
And now
being able,
now you're a part of this franchise. How does that
and
feel?
I still can't believe it. It still doesn't feel real to me. So I wake up every morning and I'm just like, oh my god, I can't believe this. Here I am talking to you. So it's
This,
crazy. It really is
this,
crazy.
this film took a lot of people by surprise because, like I mentioned earlier, yeah, it's like the fifth, sixth, I lost count, movie in a franchise. We're, as an audience, expecting from past experience an okay film. But this movie just really broke the mold. And it says, you know what? No matter how many movies into a franchise you are, it doesn't mean they have to lose their appeal. They freshened up this franchise, they brought something spectacular to it, and now that leaves the audience wondering what's more to come. What's next for the Predator franchise? Dane, you did a fantastic job as the Predator. The movie's fantastic. You, Amber, the entire cast, the crew, you made something special and magical. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share before we go?
No, just a big thank you for everyone who supported the film, supported us, who stuck through the Predator franchise through thick and thin, who are still here. And I appreciate that. I speak for everyone on production who appreciates that. And yeah, let's. Who knows what the future holds? But
Exactly.
I'm excited to see.
Me too. Again, a big thanks to our guest, Dane. Thank you to our audience, those who are tuning in live and those who will be watching later on. On behalf of Dane and myself, stay safe, stay walking, guys. Oh, by the way, later on tonight, I'm talking to Nelson Lees,
Oh wow!
somebody you whacked as the
Of course,
predator in the movie.
I whacked him.
So
Waxed mustache.
yeah. So we're gonna get his input on being whacked by the predator. Anyway, again, thank you, Dane. Thank you to our audience. Until next time, stay safe and stay walking. Bye, everybody.